none of those things are the first thing that God told us about God. Now, when I meet somebody, what I'm going to tell that person about me is going to be determined by who that person is and what we're about to do, right? If I meet a golfer, I'm not going to start talking to him about my guitar. And if I meet a guitarist, I'm not going to start talking to him about my golf clubs. Y'all picking up what I'm putting down? So context, when you meet somebody, determines content. And the first thing you tell somebody about you is the most important thing you want them to know about you when you first meet them. Is what I'm saying making sense? Okay, so check it. The first thing that God tells us about God, we find in Genesis chapter 1, my favorite chapter in the whole Bible. And here's what it says. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. 10 words in English, 7 words in Hebrew. Breshit, bara, Elohim, et, hashemayim, va'et, haaretz. 7 words in Hebrew. Say the same thing. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, I don't know how your mind works, but my mind is a perpetual question mark. Well, why? Why does that work like that? Why does that work like that? Why do you have 5 different positions in the pentatonic scale? Why is the melody always in the pentatonic scale? I want to know all the whys to all the whys. And when I read, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and later I found out God is self-existent, self-sufficient, self-satisfied, needs nothing. In fact, he told Job, if I was hungry, I wouldn't tell you. So why is he creating a heaven and an earth? I mean, think about it. Don't you have enough to do just being God and running all your angels and stuff? I'm not trying to be sacrilegious or disrespectful. I'm just saying, like, why would you create all of the heaven? Awesome. Earth, why? I've only been able to discover one answer. And if you got a better one, I'll be happy to hear it. But here's why I believe the first thing God tells us about God is that he created the heaven and the earth, because he is creative, and therefore it is his nature to create. The first thing God tells us about God is that he's creative. So if you're going to discover your purpose, that's where it begins. And God created everything. Why did he create everything? Well, Revelation, why did he create everything? Because he's creative, therefore it is his nature to create. Why did he create it? Well, Revelation 4:11 tells us, Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, and thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they exist, and they were created. God created everything to please himself. It pleased him. It pleased him to do so. Okay, cool. So we read on, and then Genesis chapter 1, God, do you realize the whole chapter could have been that one verse? Then he starts backing up and explaining stuff. I just thought of something funny. Genesis chapter 1, verses 2 through 31 is God explaining why he created everything. I'm like, why are you created the heaven and the earth? That's enough. Then he starts saying, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, let there be light. And there was light, and God saw the light, and it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness, and God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. And God made a firmament and divided in the water. I'm like, what are we doing here? Now, I don't know if your mind works like that, but I wanted to know, why are you giving me all these details? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because, and I'm not even going to read all of that to you right now. I'm going to take this with me because I'm probably going to need it again. So, we know that God, in the beginning when he created heaven and the earth, Genesis chapter 1 shows us that God created 3 categories. Categories? Is that it? Gories. Thank you. I can't spell worth a quarter, but I can count. Okay, so 3 categories in creation. What are those 3 categories? Category numero uno, God created creation. Creation is the sun, the moon, the stars, the grass, the trees, the water. God created stuff. That's the first thing he created. He created creation. Then he created creatures. Creatures who can't use a... Okay, creatures. I get excited, I start pressing too hard and it wants to erase. Okay, so God created creation. Creation is the sun, the moon, the stars, the grass, the mountains, the rocks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then he created creatures, the dogs, the cats, the chimpanzees, the alligators, the giraffes and the chimpanzees, all that. But you know what's really fascinating about creation and creatures? They can't even appreciate the God who created them. They can't appreciate the God who created them. They can't celebrate the God who created them. The creation can't do it because it's just there. The word for the creatures is bahema in Hebrew. Bahema, you know what bahema means? In it is what it is. A horse is a horse is a horse, of course. Okay, so a horse can only do what a horse could do the first day a horse got here. A dog could only do what a dog could do the first day a dog got here. A cat can only do what a cat could do. Like what a cat could do on day one of creation is all a cat can do now. Oh, this is so good. And then God created creators. Creators, some people don't like that when I say that, but that's fine. Creators, you could say creatives. But what do you create? See, creation and creatures couldn't appreciate the God who created them. So God created Adam, creators. Now, we're not creators in the sense that God is, because God can create something out of nothing. By the way, people who say you can speak things into existence, they are delusional. Speaking something into existence out of nothing is bara. The only person in the Bible who ever bara'd anything is God. So, you can't speak things into existence. You can't. Now, people think you can, and I know why they think you can, but they're wrong. You can't. Now, what you can do is you can speak words that, you can speak God's words into a space in your life that has doubt. And God's word can replace that doubt with faith. And then you can take an action in faith that you did not take in doubt. And then you accomplish a thing, and that's why people think they spoke the thing into existence when all they really did was said the same thing to them that God said to them about them, so that now they believe they could do the thing that God made them to do in the first place. Okay, just so you know. So Adam. So you got Aleph, Daled, Mem. That's what a man is. That's what a woman is. We're Adam. God called their name Adam. Aleph is the letter that represents God. Daled, Mem, spells the word blood. And we know that the life of the flesh is in the blood. So what is a man? Man is a godlike creator with flesh and blood. That's very different than creatures. That's very different than creation. How many of y'all tracking? And so now something new is here. So I'm going, you say, what does that have to do with my purpose? You about to see, just calm down. I got to do my introduction. Y'all know my introductions are long? Okay. So the reason I believe that the first thing God tells us about himself is that he is creative is because the first thing he tells us about us, we see in Genesis chapter 1. By the way, when God created creation, he said, let there be. When God created land animals, he said, let the earth bring forth. When God created the fish and the fowl, he said, let the sea bring forth. But when God created man, he didn't say, let the earth bring forth man. He didn't say, let there be man, and he didn't say, let the sea bring forth man. What does that tell you? That man is very different than everything else God ever created. How many of y'all tracking? Genesis 1, verse, I'm gonna read 25 first, because this is so cool. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and the cattle after his kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and God saw that it was good. And God said, verse 26, let us make man in our image, After our likeness. And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that moveth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image, and the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. Oh, so the reason the first thing God tells us about God is that he's creative is because the first thing he tells us about us is that he created us in his image, which means he created us to create stuff and he made us to make stuff. That's why we're here. Okay, now we got a piece of the purpose puzzle, don't we? Oh man, I should have named this "Putting Together the Purpose Puzzle." I guess I'll have to make another video and call it "Putting Together the Purpose Puzzle." Okay, so that would have been a great thumbnail title. Anyway, okay. So God made me. God told me he's creative, and then he told me he created me in his image. He told me he created you in his image. Oh. So that's why he went back and God-splained everything in verses 2 through 31. Because he didn't want us to just know that he created everything, but because he created us to create stuff, he wanted us to see the process for creation. I got chills all over me right there. You say, what do you mean? Okay. I'm not going to do all of them, but I'm going to show you some of them, just so you can have as many chills running up and down your arms and back and legs like I do right now. Y'all ready? So the first thing, it began with, I'm going to make this number 2. You'll see why in a minute. It began with, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. That's God's intention. So the creative process begins with intention. And then it says, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness upon the face of the deep. The word was is not the word used to be. The word was is became. So we see disruption follows intention. By the way, this is one of the reasons why people live on the struggle bus their whole life. Every time I try to do something good, it turns into something bad. No, duh. That's the point. Say, what do you mean that's the point? Breathe, Myron. Breathe. Do you see that disruption even followed God's intention? God gave Joseph a dream. Joseph told his brothers his dream, told his father and his mother his dream. His brothers hated him for his dreams and for his words. So much so, they wanted to kill him. But one of the brothers said, nah, let's don't kill him. We can't make no money if we kill him. Let's throw him in the ditch, see if we can go find a buyer. By the time they came back, he was already gone. God gave Joseph a dream. He told people his dream. And then disruption followed his intention. He went down into the pit. They sold him into slavery. He was Potiphar's slave. Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him. He didn't submit. So Potiphar's wife threw him in prison. Potiphar threw him in prison. You know why Potiphar threw him in prison, don't you? Because he knew his wife was a slut. But he had to do something. If Potiphar would have thought that Joseph tried to seduce his wife, Potiphar would have had him killed. He knew he married, and he knew his mama told him not to marry that woman. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to stay on track. Maybe, hopefully. But Joseph had disruption follow his intention. God calls Moses to deliver the children of Israel from bondage. And then he kills an Egyptian wanting to do it his way, and now he has to escape. He's a fugitive. Disruption always follows intention. King David gets anointed to be the king of Israel, and guess what happens? Saul tries to kill him. Disruption always follows intention. Okay, y'all ain't feeling me. Let me give you the ultimate disruption following intention. John the Baptist baptizes Jesus in the Jordan. The heavens open. The Spirit descends like a dove. Voice from heaven, this is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. You know what the next word is? Immediately. He's led of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil, and 40 days and 40 nights he ate nothing, and afterwards he was an hungered. Why? It's a pattern. Learn to discern biblical patterns. Disruption always follows intention. But then what? Well, Genesis chapter says the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. What's that? Inspiration. We have to find a source of inspiration after disruption follows our intention. What happens after that? And God said, let there be light. What is that? That's illumination. We learn something that we can see something we couldn't see because we learned something we didn't know. This is the process for creation. There's more. There's delegation. There's segmentation to completion. There's separation. There's a whole bunch of other stuff in there. I'm going to let y'all go find the rest of them because this is not the point today. But you say, why did you save one? Well, because God didn't need one, but we do. What's number one? Number one is awareness. God didn't need awareness because he's already aware of everything because he already knows everything. He's omniscient, so he knows everything. So we don't know everything. So if I want my life to change for the better, I have to discover a new awareness, and then I'll set a new intention. And then I have to make a decision about that intention because disruption is going to follow that intention. And then I have to have discipline when disruption follows the intention to keep on doing the thing I decided to do. And by the way, the word decide means to cut yourself off from any other possibility. Are y'all tracking? Okay. So, now that the introduction, y'all think I'm kidding, I'm very serious. Now that the introduction is done, let me say this. You, who? Everybody tap yourself on the chest, say me. You were uniquely created for a purpose, and your purpose was uniquely created for you. How many of y'all tracking? Wave at me if you're tracking. But not only that, your fulfillment in life comes from your struggle to connect your purpose with you and the work you do. That's where your fulfillment comes from. Now, how do I discover my purpose? That's the question, right? How do I discover my purpose? You must first realize that there are levels and layers to one's purpose. You have a spiritual purpose. You have a special purpose. You have a social purpose. And you have a sacrificial purpose. All of us have all of those. If you don't fulfill all of those, then you are not going to feel fulfilled. So what are those? What are these purposes? Okay? You have to how do you discover your purpose? That's what this point is. Discover. How do I discover my purpose? Well, I discover my purpose, one, by I have a spiritual purpose. What's my spiritual purpose? To please God. That is the primary number one thing I was created for. Everything I'm to do with my life, my entire life, is to please God. That's why I'm here. That's why you're here. That's why your next door neighbor's here. That's why the guy down the street's here. That's why the people who get on your nerves are here. To please God. Everybody's here to please God. That's your spiritual purpose. But you also have a social purpose. What's a social purpose? To create value for other people. You say, why do you say it, Myron? Look not every man on his own things, look every man also on the things of others. Let each esteem other better than themselves. I am supposed to put you first. You're supposed to put me first. I'm not supposed to tell you to put me first. You're not supposed to tell me to put you first. We're just all supposed to do that. Wouldn't the world be a very different place if everybody sought to please God and create value for other people? The world would be a very different place. All of the social ills in the world would go away in one fell swoop. But instead, we seek to please ourselves and then find other people who can create value for us. So, creating value for other people is one of the primary reasons for which I was created. But in order for me to do that, if I'm going to create value for other people, I have to value the people that I'm going to create value for enough to find out what they value in the first place. And we are so self-absorbed and so self-consumed and so self-righteous that we negate one of the most primary purposes for our existence. Like, I'm supposed to be looking out for you. Like, if I'm having a bad day, I'm having a bad day. You know why I'm having a bad day? Because I'm thinking about Myron Golden. And I'm not counting my blessings. I'm thinking about what's missing in my life. You know how much money thinking about what's missing in my life makes me? None. You know how much fulfillment me thinking about what's missing in my life gives me? None. You know what gives me fulfillment? Thinking about what's missing in other people's lives and doing everything in my power to make it to create it so they can have it. For some people just don't have enough encouragement. Guess what? Encouragement is easy to create and it doesn't cost anything. But most people can't be bothered. You know why? They're too busy thinking about all the people who didn't do them right and all the people who did do them wrong. Like, get over yourself. I mean, if Jesus, who was perfect, that's what it tells us in Hebrews chapter 9, right? For such an high priest became us, who is holy, harmless, undefiled, separate from sinners, made higher than the heavens, who needeth not daily as those high priests offer sacrifice, first for his own sins, then for the sins of the people. For this he did once when he offered himself. Jesus was perfect. And yet he was not self-absorbed. He was not self-consumed. He was not self-willed. Here's what it tells about Jesus. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant. The King of Kings took upon the form of a servant. What is your kingdom assignment? To serve other people. Oh, this is so good. I love how the Bible is just so perfectly fitting together. You have to create value for other people, but in order to do that, you have to value other people enough to find out what they value. By the way, I can tell you where values come from if I have time. I do have time. I can tell you where values come from. In fact, I'm going to make a little side note here. Values come from past, perceived, voids. Past perceived voids create present pursued values. What does that mean? If I feel like something was missing in my past, then I will value it in my present. First thing that comes to my mind is my 1968 Pontiac GTO, because I wanted that car when I was a kid, and a friend of mine had it, but he wouldn't sell it to me, and I've jonesed for that car for 50-something years, and I finally found one. And I'm like, why? Why do I want to? It's not as comfortable as any other car I have. It doesn't have air conditioning. It's a convertible, but it doesn't have air conditioning. It doesn't have shoulder seat belts. If any car ever needed an airbag, that car needs an airbag with that hard steering wheel. But it doesn't have an airbag. Like, what is it? It was missing in my past. And maybe somebody was missing encouragement in their past, and you can come by and give them some encouragement and make a difference in their life. Maybe they didn't know how to do something that you know how to by talking to them about the payoff as you were about creating the thing in the first place. Some people have there's so many great inventions that got lost in Neverland because the person who invented it couldn't explain to people what he had invented or what she had invented. Become purposefully expressive. Be purposefully enthusiastic. I'm purposefully enthusiastic primarily because I believe that tomorrow is going to be better than today, even though today is great. Next week is going to be better than this week, even though this week is utterly fantastic. Next month is going to be better than this month, even though this month was over the top. You say, why do you believe that? Because God wouldn't have commanded me to be progressively productive if he didn't believe I could do it. I'm enthusiastic because God said, go do this, which means I can. God's not in the habit of frustrating his children. If ye being evil know how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more shall your heavenly Father give good things unto them that ask him? You say, what you so excited about? Because it's about to get better. And it's already good. And then be purposefully excellent. Operate in a place of excellence in everything you do. Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. For there's no work, nor device, nor service in the grave whither thou goest. Eventually, we're going to die. Why do I want to operate from excellence? Because when I'm dead, I won't be able to operate from excellence. In fact, I won't be able to operate at all. So you develop a purposeful mindset, a purposeful skill set, and a purposeful tool set. How do you develop a purposeful tool set? Learn which tools to use for which tasks. When I was a kid, a hammer was good for just pretty much everything. Right? But learn which tools to use for which tasks. Learn how to use all of the tools your purpose requires. People say, but I don't know how to use a computer. That's fine. That's fine. You don't know how to use a computer. That's fine today. But if a month from now, that's still your excuse, in the words of Jim Rohn, maybe we should come get your family and take them to safety. It doesn't take much longer than a month to learn how to use one. I don't know how to use the internet. That's fine. Today. But learn how to use all the tools. So much stuff I learned how to do. I had no idea how to do when I started this business. But guess what? I learned one thing at a time, and I added the next one to the last one, and then the next one to that one, and then the next one to that one. And before you knew it, I had a whole tool set. And then leverage the tools of your trade and profit from your purpose. Do you understand? God put your purpose in you so you could profit from it. He wants you to receive the benefit. That's why he said, be fruitful, do multiply, replenish the earth, subdue it, and have dominion. God gave Solomon wisdom. And God gave Solomon enough wisdom not to give the wisdom away. Solomon sold it. Solomon made people pay him for what God gave him. Hallelujah. Leverage the tools of your trade and profit from your purpose. So and you can come by and teach them how to do it, and they pay you for it. And they value it because they wanted to learn how to do it their whole life and never had the opportunity to learn how. Do you see how this works together? Okay, some people just didn't have any encouragement. They were made fun of their whole life. And all you got to do is come along and give them encouragement. Man, this thing is so simple yet so powerful. It'll change our very existence. Okay, past perceived voids. Number 2, present perceived value. Present perceived virtues. Thank you. Virtues create present pursued values. Man, this is starting to turn into a tongue twister. Okay, present perceived virtues create present pursued values. Things that people believe are good right now are things that they pursue. Like, if I value my health, I will go to the gym, get on a treadmill, and run as fast as I can to nowhere. I will pick up weights and move them nowhere simply for the sake of making my muscles hurt, right? So I can be stronger. So present perceived virtues. When figure out what the people around you believe is good and create that for them. They'll pay you for it. Okay, and then last but not least, future perceived visions create present pursued values. Like, if somebody has a vision for the future, they'd like to have an outcome in the future, they don't know how to get it in the present, but you know how to get that outcome for them in the present because you've gotten it for yourself, maybe you've gotten it for other people. If you can show them how you can help them get that vision that they have for their future, they'll pay you for it in the present. Are y'all picking up what I'm putting down? Okay, so you discover your spiritual purpose, your social purpose is to create value for other people. Then you have your, that wasn't your spiritual, that was your special purpose. Your social purpose, number 3, is your social purpose, and that is to connect with other people. I'm going to tell you something now, and some of y'all ain't going to believe me. Even if you're an introvert, a part of your purpose is to connect with other people. even if you're shy, even if you don't like how you look, and you think other people are going to judge how you look because you've been judging how you look because of all the people who grew when you were growing up who gave you your identity, they didn't like how you looked. Even if you think you're not smart, God created you to connect with other people. And you can be pleasing God and praying and reading the Bible and creating value for other people, and maybe you have a really successful business. If you don't have any real and meaningful connections with other people in your life, with your family, with your friends, with the people you work with and the people you work for, you are going to feel unfulfilled in your life because you're missing out on a primary part of fulfilling your purpose. Wait till I show you this. This is about to get juicy. Y'all don't even know. Okay, and then the last one, the last subpoint under the first point, don't be confused about it, is you have a sacrificial purpose. And that is to contribute to other people. Now, when you create stuff for other people, a lot of the stuff I create for other people, I sell it to them. I don't look confused, do I? I just want to make sure y'all looking at me so I don't look confused. They pay a lot of this stuff up here I create. Like when I write a book, we ain't giving those away. We selling those. We're selling those. When I create courses, selling them. Coaching programs, pay me. I'm not confused. But this stuff down here, this contribute to other people, this is the sacrificial purpose. Creating stuff, contributing to other people in general, but especially people who have nothing to offer you. If you are not contributing to a person or to people, more accurately, to people who can't give you anything back, you feel unfulfilled. I don't care how much money you make. You're making all the money in the world. You got a beautiful wife or a handsome husband, and you got some friends, and you're connected with people, and you love your kids, and your kids love you, and you're giving nothing to no one. You're miserable. There's a part of your life in which you're miserable. Why? Because this is the pattern of fulfillment. Why do I say this is the pattern for fulfillment? Because when God created creation and creatures, he couldn't connect with them. So what did he do? He created some creators that he could connect with. Oh man, God, thank you for doing this for us. You made us so we can appreciate you and we can commune with you and we can talk to you and you talk to us and you guide us and you lead us. And thank you for that. Oh, I forgot. This part of man got the best of him. And man sinned and severed the connection. In Genesis chapter 3. God created all this, did all this work, created the creatures, the creation, then he creates the creature. And then God's walking with man in the garden in the cool of the day, and they're having fellowship, and they're enjoying each other's presence. And then man goes and messes up the whole thing because he was focused on what was missing instead of focusing on what was there. That's how I know that fulfillment comes from creation, because we made in the image of God. He created us to create stuff. That's how I know that we get fulfillment from connection, because God created us so he'd have someone to connect with. And that's how I know we get fulfillment from contribution, because when man sinned, what he did was he tried to cover it up by making aprons out of fig leaves. And God said, fig leaves don't work. Fig leaves are the works of your own hands from your garden. But in order for you to be reconnected to me, a sacrifice has to be made. And it says God made them coats of skin, which means some animals had to die and some blood had to be shed to cover man's sin. Why? Because that was a foreshadowing of the fact that the God of the universe was going to contribute his own son to reconnect God to his creators, to his creatives, to the men and the women and the boys and the girls that he made. And God made me in his image, which means if God is only fulfilled, if God himself is only fulfilled through creation and connection and contribution, and I'm made in his image, how could I be delusional enough to think I'm going to be fulfilled some other way? Like, I get it. I'm not pretending that this stuff is easy. It's not easy because we have a sin nature. And my sin nature likes being lazy. It doesn't like creating stuff. Don't look at me like that. Your sin nature's crazy, lazy too. Yeah, crazy and lazy, okay? My sin nature likes to argue just like yours does. I say, I don't like to fight, and I really don't. I'm a very loving human being. I don't like to fight, but I don't mind. So, how do you discover your purpose? You have to be using the gifts God gave you to create something, to create value for somebody other than yourself. You have to be perpetually making and developing connections with other people. And then you have to be willing to contribute stuff to people who have nothing to offer you. So that's how you discover your purpose. I'm going to say this, because I don't know if I have it in here. I do have it in here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go a little more quickly on the rest of these points. So that's how you discover your purpose. Now, how do you develop yourself for that purpose? Because if you discover your purpose and you don't develop yourself for that purpose, you're still going to miss it. You develop your purposeful mindset. What is your purposeful mindset? Gratefulness. You know why you're not happy? Because you've forgotten that everything is a gift. How do I know everything's a gift? Here's what the scripture says. What hast thou that thou didst not receive? Well, Myron, I worked really hard to build this business. I know, but who's the one that gave you the mind to work real hard to build that business? Who's the one that gave you the body to work real hard to build that business? So yeah, you built it, but you built it with stuff that was given to you. Well, gratefulness, like people are so ungrateful. Do you know what being miserable is? Being ungrateful. I'm just so depressed right now. I know you're ungrateful. I'm not saying there's no pain in your life. I'm not saying there's no difficulty in your life. We all have painful stuff, difficult stuff in our life. My brother's in the hospital right now. Brother who I'm very, very close to. I've known him my whole life. He's my only older brother. I'm not saying we don't go through things. I don't want anybody to feel bad for me for anything. I have more blessings than I have time to count. When I get home at night, especially the night before last, after that event was over, man, I am unconsciously moaning while I'm taking off my shoes. But guess what? I can either focus on the fact that my feet hurt or focus on the fact that I'm grateful that I have shoes and feet and a place to take them off. A place to sit down while I take them off. I don't have to sit on the ground when I take off my shoes. Like, what would happen in our lives if we just practice being more aware of our gifts? I'm not saying we'd never be sad. I'm not saying we'd never have grief. I'm not saying but I'm saying we wouldn't live there. I heard the guy say one time, he said, it ain't a sin for a bird to land on your head. But if he builds a nest up there, that's a sin. Why? He ain't got no business being there that long. Gratefulness. That's part of your purposeful mindset. God wants us to be aware of the fact, one of the reasons he made us is so the fact we could appreciate all these gifts. But not only gratefulness, but faithfulness. Be faithful to the one who made you by doing faithfully what he made you to do. I'm so glad that I don't have to wander my way through life groping in the dark. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be discovering your purpose and then developing yourself for that purpose. The purposeful mindset is a grateful mindset, it is a faithful mindset, and it is a joyful mindset. This is one of the hardest things we as human beings, as followers of Christ, I'm going to say it like that, we as followers of Christ must learn to do. We must learn to live in a state of perpetual joyfulness, to the point where we even have joy when we're in the midst of our sadness. What does that even mean, have joy in the midst of your sadness, bro? What you talking about? What I'm talking about is this, is for us to be aware of the presence of God more than we're aware of the absence of anything. Because in his presence is fullness of joy. But developing ourself for a purpose is not just about developing a purposeful mindset, but it's also about developing a purposeful skill set. What is that? Well, the skills that we use to create value for other people. And we need to be purposefully efficient. What does that mean? Not wasteful. We're not wasting opportunities. We're not wasting time. We're not wasting our gifts. We are efficient. We're getting maximum use out of every activity. Which doesn't mean, by the way, that doesn't look like working all the time. People who are efficient are not working all the time. I don't have time for my kids, I'm working. Now, when you first get started, maybe. When you first start a business, maybe you're working pretty much all the time, like round the clock. You'll have some days like that when you first get started. But the purpose is to be efficient enough to build up enough revenue and cash flow to start hiring other people. Why? Because when you hire other people, you give them an opportunity to fulfill their purpose, and then while they're fulfilling their purpose, they're helping you fulfill your purpose, and everybody's winning. So you need to be purposefully efficient. Figure out a way, an efficient way, to create value that other people in this world would be happy to pay for. That's number one. Number two, be purposefully expressive. Become more hyper intentional with your words. Can I tell you something? If you're a parent listening to me right now, and maybe you do this, can I challenge you? Stop cussing at your kids. That's not helpful. But you don't know how mad I am and you don't know what they did. Doesn't matter. By the way, if you have children, they're going to do some stuff to disappoint you, do some stuff to upset you, do some stuff to irritate you, do some stuff to make you wonder why I ever brought you in this world. But God doesn't cuss at us. Even when we disobey. Stop cussing at your kids. In fact, stop cussing at your spouse. In fact, just stop cussing. How about that? I'm blown away how we've normalized cussing as a society. It's like, that's just how people talk. Ain't how I talk. My daughter is 33 years old. My son is 35 years old. They have never heard me or my wife say a curse word to each other or to them, ever, not one time. You know why? Because we haven't heard ourselves say one. It's pretty easy for them not to hear it if I don't say it. It's just not helpful. Anyway, but when I'm talking about being purposefully expressive, I'm talking about if you have created value that somebody else would be willing to pay you for, get as good at telling them how valuable it can be for them